Greetings and welcome to another Patch Notes video here at Words About Games, a weekly video series that lets us host discussions and post opinion pieces about our various thoughts on games, gaming and the industry. Today I'm casting another look at my 16 most anticipated games of 2019 to give the list some sprucing up, which has become a quarterly ritual here at Words About Games, because games get released and delayed all the time, so why not keep the list topped up with new entries. Last April I added 5 new games to the list. We already saw releases for Resident Evil 2, Sunless Skies, Metro Exodus, Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, and Katana Zero make room for the new entries. This time around I'm swapping out 7 games, and I'm particularly excited because this list is the first one to incorporate E3. So what's changed? For starters, Days Gone, Observation, Cadence of Hyrule, My Friend Pedro, and Super Mario Maker 2 have all been released, so naturally they've dropped off the list to make room for some new blood. I've also removed Dying Light 2 and Ori and the Will of the Wisps, as they've both been delayed. It's okay though, there are plenty of great games taking their stead. Bayonetta 3 has also been dumped. I said in my last update that if we saw nothing at E3 then I doubt the game is coming in 2019, and the show came and went without even a sniff of Bayonetta. As always, the list is in order of release date, with games grouped together at the end if they don't have specific dates. And I'd better note that new entries will probably be longer than the older ones, as I've spoken about the older ones in previous videos, which are linked in the description below for your viewing pleasure. So, with the preamble out of the way, let's jump into the list itself. One big miss from E3 this year was EA showing off a new game from its Originals lineup, maddeningly relegating its presence to an out-of-show press release and short video. I always love seeing the developers take the stage amidst all the sports and Titanic action games to present their cool little game, and they generally tend to be amongst my favourites of any given E3. Say what you will about EA, but they know how to spot indie talent and help them bring their dreams to fruition. Last year's reveal of Sea of Solitude is still on my mind, and the game comes out today. As such, my anticipation is reaching its apex. I can't wait to explore its eerie world. The art looks amazing, the monsters look creepy, and there's definitely been a lot of creativity brought to bear in this game. This isn't going to be a ripping yarn or high-spirited adventure, however. The story of Sea of Solitude was written by lead developer Cornelia Geppert, written as a journey about overcoming loneliness by a woman who was feeling her loneliest and needed to let it out into the game she was making. Dragon Quest Builders 2 is one of the few games that's been on this list since January. As such, I'm not sure there's much more to say about it that I haven't already. The way Japanese publishers tend to market their games is to give you a broad amount of information about the game to start with, then expand upon that information as time passes. As such, despite seeing a lot of Dragon Quest Builders 2 at E3, we didn't really get too much in the way of actually new information. I'm still really excited to play it. The original Dragon Quest Builders was a pleasant surprise for me. I remember finding it tucked away at EGX in a moment where I badly needed a seat more than anything else, and ended up playing it for 45 minutes. I played a lot more of it after it came out and loved the mix of building mechanics and adventure gameplay, both of which have been expanded on for the upcoming sequel, and now I'm mostly in the headspace of simply wanting to get my hands on it. As is a running theme for Nintendo's handheld franchises, I've never played a Fire Emblem game, having never owned a Nintendo handheld before. That's one of the things that excites me most about Nintendo's move to a home console handheld hybrid with the Switch, and I'm really looking forward to my first taste of Fire Emblem when Three Houses launches in late July. But it's not just getting to play my first Fire Emblem that has me stuck to sit down and lose myself in its deep gameplay. The two-act nature of the game really intrigues me. The first half of the game takes place at a special school, where you'll train and customize the students of one of the 3 titular houses, moving the story forward a month at a time, and ending with the students getting their certification. After that, the game moves on to the second act, which is set 5 years later, and sees the houses at war for some unknown reason, meaning the opposing soldiers you'll meet in battle may very well be the students you met during the game's first half. Honestly, there are literally dozens of reasons why Three Houses sounds amazing, and I absolutely cannot wait to get my hands on it. I've been low-key keeping tabs on Necro Barista for a while now. While I'm not usually one for visual novels, I tend to get drawn to ones with a unique concept or narrative hook. Think Valhalla or Doki Doki Literature Club. I can't remember when it was I first saw Necro Barista, but whenever I did or however that went, I've been really interested ever since. For starters, the concept alone is really fascinating. You'll be playing as Maddie Zhao, a barista who runs the Terminal, a hipster coffee shop in Melbourne. Oh, and also she's a necromancer, and the clientele of the coffee shop comprise of both the living and the dead. Beyond that awesome narrative hook, there are a few touches that make Necro Barista stand out from the pack. The game will feature branching dialogue trees, more akin to an RPG than necessarily a traditional visual novel, and you'll be able to collect keywords in an inventory which you can use as topics in future conversations. More impressively, however, are the game's visuals. Necro Barista's aesthetic is fully anime, and its scenes will take place fully in 3D, eschewing the genre's tradition of having players stare at 2D avatars on a screen. You'll even be able to explore the terminal and Melbourne in free-roaming first-person sections as well. August can't get here fast enough. Another game that's been on my list since I first wrote it, Control is the next game from one of my all-time favourite developers, Remedy Entertainment. I've loved everything they've done, from Max Payne right through to Quantum Break, and while their newest development definitely looks like it's breaking some new ground for them, there are also still a ton of touches that identify this as a quintessential Remedy experience. At E3 I saw a full 18 minutes of gameplay, comprising of both a couple of cutscenes and some combat. Both looked really sharp, especially the mysterious janitor character who definitely knows a heck of a lot more than he's letting on about the crazy supernatural building you'll spend the entire game exploring. The combat also looks really sharp, probably Remedy's best combat yet, at least from seeing the demo. I'm especially a fan of protagonist Jessie's satisfying looking supernatural powers and her Swiss Army knife-like handgun that can switch between different gun types. Astral Chance is the next fast-paced chaotic action game from Platinum Games. What, you didn't think I'd remove Bayonetta 3 without having another Platinum game to replace it with, did you? It's a Nintendo Switch exclusive and its development is being supervised by Bayonetta and Devil May Cry creator Hideki Kamiya. All of this information already puts the game firmly into the "I'm really excited, give me this game now" camp, but having seen a live gameplay demo of it at E3 and seen Takahisa Taura talk about it, Astral Chain is a game I'm super anticipating. It's all about the tandem mechanic that's central to Astral Chain's combat mechanics. The main character is a police officer fighting off interdimensional beings known as Chimera, standard cop stuff. Their partner is called Legion, a captured Chimera who's been trained to fight with humans. You control both of them during fights through a mystic link that allows them to fight in tandem. The characters are literally connected by a chain, and each side of the controller controls the two characters, and you'll be using one to set up combos for the other, all by yourself. Trying to do this cooperatively is, apparently, incredibly difficult. The last game where I controlled two characters simultaneously was the excellent Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, so a chaotic action game version of that sounds right up my alley. Unlike every other game that had a showing at E3 this year, I actually went out of my way not to see anything for Man of Medan, the first part of a new horror anthology series from Until Dawn creators Supermassive Games. All of my hype from this game stems from being absolutely enraptured by their previous horror masterpiece, so aside from a couple of spooky but mysterious trailers, I've dodged everything from gameplay demos to interviews, press releases and more, so I can't really say too much about Man of Medan here for this entry. From the brief trailers I've seen, it certainly looks like Supermassive will be expanding on all of the gameplay mechanics they utilised in Until Dawn. After watching them spend a couple of years making VR games for Sony, it's really nice to see that they're diving back into the genre that made me fall in love with them as a studio. So while I can't talk too much about the game specifically, I can tell you I'm pumped to play the game when it drops at the end of August. I mentioned the last time I did this video that while I really liked the idea of a Link's Awakening remake, it wasn't what got me most excited coming out of Nintendo's excellent February Direct. I like the look of it, but definitely needed to see more, because while it looked really pretty, we didn't actually get to see much of the game itself beyond an admittedly great trailer. That all changed at E3 when Nintendo dedicated an entire 3 days to showing deep dives into a bunch of their games at their Treehouse Live event, which was fantastic by the way, and I strongly urge you to check it out if you haven't already. For some reason, the art style of Link's Awakening clicked with me in a way it hadn't back in February. Maybe by seeing the game in motion and controlled by someone, I was finally able to properly appreciate what Nintendo are going for with the remake. I've praised Nintendo for having some really creative teams that know how to bring unique looks to their games. Breath of the Wild's heavy stylization and the last two Yoshi games being made from wool and papercraft, for example. I've fallen in love with Link's Awakening's diorama-like art style, and I can't wait to play it for myself later this year. Also, the game looks pretty good too. After Party, like Man of Medan earlier, is another game I'm trying to see as little as possible of while I wait for its release. I saw that Janina Gavankar was at E3 promoting the game, as she's playing the female protagonist, which was news to me. Look, this game is being made by Night School Studio, the makers of Oxenfree, which was one of my favourite narrative adventure games of an entire generation, simply because it didn't pause the game every time you were having a conversation with someone. And I love the story and characters. After Party looks like more of that, but set in hell, where you need to outdrink Satan to earn a second chance at life, which is one hell of a concept for a game. I don't even drink alcohol, but sign me up for that bender. I've heard literally nothing new about Killer Queen Black in the 3-ish months since the last video. It still looks like an awesome concept, and it's still coming to Game Pass, reconfirmed in Microsoft's E3 presser in a blink and you'll miss it appearance. For anyone who hasn't seen the last 2 videos or doesn't know about Killer Queen Black, it's a 3v3 platform action game where 2 teams have multiple paths to victory and must try to fulfill one while stopping the opposing team players from winning themselves. There's a Let's Play of the game up over on Kinda Funny Games that's worth checking out if you want to see the game in action, and I highly recommend you do, because it looks really great. Obsidian Entertainment brought The Outer Worlds to E3 to really hammer home the point that this is the best Fallout that Bethesda never made. Or rather, the new best Fallout that Bethesda never made, since Bethesda never actually made all of the best Fallouts. It was quite an amusing situation that unfolded at E3 actually. While Bethesda were blatantly failing to apologise for lying to people last E3 over Fallout 76 and thinking that a Battle Royale mode and some NPCs would fix everything, Obsidian was showing The Outer Worlds from the original creators of Fallout, which was a single-player, narrative-driven RPG and basically everything fans of the Fallout series actually want from their games. I came into 2019 quite excited for The Outer Worlds because I love sci-fi and I love a good RPG, but seeing the game in action and hearing the lead developers talk about it has moved that excitement up a couple of notches. It seems like Obsidian are bringing the best parts of modern-day Fallout games, the atmosphere and exploration, which they themselves did a good job of with Fallout New Vegas, and marrying it to the strong narratives and interesting choice and consequence role-playing of the earlier Fallout entries. If they can fix the lackluster combat while they're at it, The Outer Worlds might actually be the best Fallout game Bethesda never made. How many trailers have there been for Death Stranding since its reveal at that one E3 3 years ago? I've lost count. It's inconceivable that the game is finally coming out later this year, but even more inconceivable that I don't have the first clue what kind of game it is, how it plays, or what it's about. I know game makers like to keep things shrouded in mystery to ensure that players aren't spoiled or have some surprises left for themselves when they come to play, but the best I can muster is it looks like it's a third-person game. Look, I'm not even going to attempt to dissect the imagery we've seen for the game thus far. I feel like that's a quick way to drive myself mad. I'll tell you what though, the absolute insanity of this game's reveal has ensured one thing, that I am immensely curious to play it when it comes out, which is, amazingly, later this year. 7 years after EA were handed the exclusive rights to make games with the Star Wars license, we're finally getting a single-player game out of the deal. I know Battlefront 2 had a single-player campaign, but, I mean, come on. It feels like Fallen Order has risen from the ashes. At least 2 of the Star Wars games and an entire development studio have fallen in the past 7 years trying to make a single-player Star Wars game. And it looks fantastic, following its big E3 gameplay reveal, and I can't wait to step into Cal Kestis' shoes in November. But I don't just want this game to be good. Again, it looks fantastic already. I want it to really do well. I want it to blow Battlefront sales numbers out of the water, to really rub EA's face in the fact that a cinematic, single-player Star Wars game is all fans of the series have wanted since they got their hands on the license all those years ago. I should work on those feelings of spite, that they're not conducive to being a Jedi after all. Hopefully I'll have that all squared away by the time Fallen Order comes out in November. The storefront for Ooblets has had soonish as a release date since at least last December, and I'm starting to wonder if developer Glumberland and I have very different takes on what that word means. Either way, Ooblets is still on here because it still hasn't come out, but it still looks charming and adorable, and all I want to do is make Ooblet friends, hopefully at some point in 2019. I'm still not convinced that Sony remembers that Dreams is a thing. It's been out in early access for a little while now, probably so creators can help Media Molecule build up the amount of content in the game before launching to the wider public. But honestly, aside from seeing Media Molecule and early access creators sharing some frankly amazing creations from the game, I don't think I've seen Sony say a peep about the game since it was soft launched. Go do a Google search or have a look through Twitter at the breadth of what's being created in Dreams right now. It's a bit astounding, especially considering this stuff is being made by people who are still getting to grips with the tools available in the game. As you know from when I've talked about things like Mario Maker, I'm not a builder. I get these games to experience the creations of others. Hopefully that lends some weight to what I'm about to say. Dreams could actually be one of the best games of this entire generation. I'm hoping it gets launched soon because I'm saving myself for its wider release. I remember this game getting announced at the Game Awards last December. The trailer was a bit trippy, had an incredible art style, but didn't really communicate itself too well about what the game actually was, at least not someone who was up watching game trailers at 3 in the morning. I think I subconsciously filed the reveal away in the back of my mind, wanting to see a more in-depth look at the game sometime in the future. It turns out that time was about a day after I finished writing the last video, when 12 minutes of gameplay was released for Sayonara Wild Hearts out of PAX East, courtesy of YouTuber Handsome Phantom. I don't even know how to describe what I saw with words. The gameplay is a trippy action rhythm game with a killer soundtrack and incredible art style. I just kind of sat watching for 12 minutes, completely entranced by what I was watching. I've seen the game described as a pop music fever dream, and that it's like riding a motorcycle through a Carly Rae Jepsen album. Whatever is happening in that demo, and in the game as a whole, I need to get this game in my hands as fast as possible. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, please leave us a comment, like, or subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We've got tons of awesome videos coming every week, including review impressions, indie game of the week, debate-driven top 5 lists, video essays, and our weekly podcast where we discuss games, gaming culture, and the games industry. We also stream 3 times a week at twitch.tv/wordsaboutgames. But most importantly, have a fantastic day.